Good evening and welcome to In Focus, the live panel discussion brought to you by the Barbados Government Information Service. I'm your host, Sharifa Medford-Gilkes. Tonight we focus on workplace wellness, an issue that affects not only employees and employers, but can impact productivity, morale, and the wider economy. As organizations continue to navigate changing work environments, increased stress levels, and a heightened focus on employee well-being, there is growing recognition that healthy workplaces are essential to national development. Joining us for this important discussion are two members of the National Committee on Wellness in the Workplace, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Labour, Social Security and Third Sector, Faye Prescod, and Professor Dwayne Devonish, who also chairs the Subcommittee on Promotions and Awareness for Wellness in the Workplace. Now remember, this is a live discussion and we want to hear from you. So send us your questions and comments via the BGIS Facebook page and YouTube channel, and we'll try to respond to as many as possible throughout the program. So let's get into it. Thank you so much for being here. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome, Ms. Professor Devonish. Let's get the ball rolling by telling us what is the workplace wellness policy, what does it entail, what are some of the key elements of this?
Okay, so I'm going to briefly background the history, the origin of the National Workplace Wellness Policy. So in 2016, Orlando Gabby Scott came to me to ask whether there was such a thing across jurisdictions about a national workplace wellness policy being in place. And I did that research, and I found out that there was no country that has recorded a national workplace wellness policy on their books. And we started the work in earnest to develop a national workplace wellness policy between 2016 to 2018. So the policy actually came to fruition in 2018. And in 2019, the government of Barbados approved, the cabinet of Barbados actually approved the policy as a national policy. And the purpose of the policy is really to drive a national culture of wellness across the employment sectors, from private, civil society, and the public sector. And how we sought to do that is to provide necessary education, resources, and support to employers, to employees, to trade unions on workplace wellness design and implementation of initiatives across the four.
Okay, I know that the policy has like 9
Yes.
pillars, basically. Can you tell me more about them?
Right. So one of the key things about wellness is its distinction from health. So your health is a state of being. You could be in good health or poor health. But wellness is actually the collection of the individual attitudes, intentions, lifestyle habits that you employ as an individual to reach to a healthy state. So wellness is that process through which you become healthy. So there are many things that we can navigate when it comes to our health, and those things we don't have any control over. The things that we have control over actually are the things in which wellness actually resides. The 9 dimensions that wellness actually touches include your physical wellness, your environmental wellness, which speaks to the environment in which you work. There's the psychological wellness or your mental wellness. We have social wellness, which looks at the level of interpersonal harmony among team workers in the workplace. You have intellectual wellness, which speaks to creativity and innovation. There's occupational wellness, which speaks to your satisfaction and your person-job fit. How good do you feel in the organization? How well do you feel in the organization? How satisfied are you? Your morale. We also have financial wellness, which tackles things like financial literacy. Are you living paycheck by paycheck, or are you managing your finances well? There's spiritual wellness, which looks at your spiritual beliefs and how those beliefs are aligned with your work and your work practices. And of course, you have your cultural wellness, which speaks to your respect for diversity and culture and its impact on your health.
Okay.
Yeah.
PS, or shall I say Ms. Prescod or PS, which is more comfortable? Ms. Prescod, good night. Thank you for being here. I know that the Ministry of Labour is pivotal in executing this policy. Why is this so important to the ministry?
Well, the Ministry of Labour really is the ministry where workplace wellness falls under. And I guess most persons will know that we have the Safety at Health at Work Act, which we usually call the SHAW Act. So therefore, the responsibility of the ministry is to make sure that all workplaces are safe and healthy for persons to operate. So therefore, that is why we have this under us. Usually health and wellness, there's already a Ministry of Health and Wellness, but that ministry mainly focuses on physical wellness and mental wellness. But as Professor Devonish just said, there are 9 dimensions to wellness, and therefore we are more focused on wellness in the workplace. So that falls under the responsibility of the Ministry of Labor.
For those persons who are not sure, is this only applicable to government, to public sector institutions, or is this for all businesses? No. The workplace wellness policy is for all workplaces. So even the committee is tripartite, because the social partnership falls under the Ministry of Labor as well. So everything we do in the ministry covers tripartite, covers private, public, labor, and third sector as well. So there are persons on the committee from, at least the committee is co-chaired. The committee is co-chaired by the Minister of Labor and the General Secretary of Barbados Workers Union. It's made up of persons from C2SAP. We have persons from the Organization of the Disabled on the committee as well. We have persons from the church, because faith-based organizations as well fall under the ministry. So we have from all sectors, private, public, and labor as well. Okay, I know the committee. I know that the emphasis on wellness has really increased in recent years. Why is it so important on a national level? Well, I guess it have increased, but there was always an emphasis on wellness, because I could remember all the way back from as far as 1997. Already even before I had my son, there was the Health Promotion Unit under the Ministry of Health and Wellness. I don't think it was called Health and Wellness at the time, but there was a Health Promotion Unit under there, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness, as now called, they operate fitness. They had a gym. I used to go to the lunchtime gym. And they also, even though they still have exercise programs like dancing that's paid for by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, but that only focus specifically on physical. But from, as Devonish said, Professor Devonish just said, from about 2019 when it came into being, when it was approved by Cabinet, it was May, approved by Cabinet, and from June, they had a committee set up to focus more on total health,
And I would interject to say that if you think about within the last 6 years, 3 major developments. One, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think that actually exposed the fragility of human life. And of course, I think it kind of, undergird the importance of health and wellness across the sectors. I think the second development that we have to know is that heavy NCD burden that we still are fearing as a country. And I think a policy like this and the activities that are companion to the same would do a lot to arrest that NCD burden. And thirdly, if you look at the generational shift, a lot of the younger people, Ms. Prescod, the Gen Zs, as we call them, they're going into the organization and they're prioritizing health and wellness over salary. It's different from the Gen X and the older generations. So it's that kind of prioritization. You're seeing it on social media, you're seeing it in traditional media. So wellness is now vogue. Yeah. Okay.
For the benefit of our small business persons, our entrepreneurs, how can they balance implementing the workplace wellness policy with their financial overheads and so on? Because people might think that this may cost them more to actually get this executed in their organization.
Yeah, I think one of the common misconceptions when it comes to business, especially in cooperating wellness initiatives as a smaller business, is the fact that when you engage in wellness is an expensive undertaking. It doesn't have to be. We're not asking you to implement all types of wellness initiatives all at once. It can be incremental, and it can be according to your capacity as a small business. I mean, something as simple as encouraging people in your workplace to drink a little bit more water. because we do have a problem when it comes to hydration in Barbados. You know, we see there's a significant increase in kidney disease, for example, in this country. Drinking more water, hydrating, eating, promoting healthy eating in the workplace. If you have a small team, encouraging flexibility, remote working, so that it allows them to manage the load of home and the load of work. So there are a lot of low-hanging fruit that I think businesses can actually adopt. So I don't think it's difficult to balance, but I would admit the purpose of the policy is to, in most cases, to hold the hands of small business owners to show them that they can actually enact these workplace wellness initiatives at very little cost.
Okay. I can add here is, I guess Professor Devonish probably could expand a little bit more, but we also have a workplace wellness checklist.
Yes.
I saw that on your website.
Yes.
Yes, and I can talk about that. So I developed that checklist last year, and the reason I wanted it to set up on the website is, and to be accessible, is that I found that people were not clear in terms of how do we operationalize the 9 dimensions. So when we talk about psychological wellness, how do we break that down? So what the checklist does is take 50 indicators for each dimension, and you can, so for example, under physical wellness, it would say something like, do you engage in physical activity in your workplace? Do you have water stations for workers? So it gives you those kind of measurable indicators that you can tick off as a checklist, and you can score yourself. You can say, well, I got 40 out of 50, so you know that's a percentage, and then you can use it as a monitoring tool over time. So it's a pretty neat instrument.
So I reviewed the checklist. I noticed it's very long, and it's a lot of questions as you broke it up into the 9 dimensions that you would have mentioned earlier. What's the feedback you're getting from that? And persons who do fill it out and notice that they may be dropping below the percentage that you would prefer them to be at, what do they do next?
Okay, so one of the things I would advocate, and this is important because PS Prescod spoke about the National Committee, but there's actually a subcommittee that I chair, and that subcommittee, we have a very diligent team, and we have what we consider to be mental health, physical health experts and specialists. One of the things that we try to do is to pair organizations who feel that they need to get greater support to a consultant or a wellness expert, because I think that's going to be a vital aspect of the policy work. Remember, one of the key objectives is to promote resources and support for businesses. So we can do a lot of education, but you also have to provide resources. So we try to align businesses to certain types of professionals to fit their needs. So they can determine, oh, we're very low on environmental wellness, so we probably need to bring somebody to help us deal with those environmental concerns, for example. So, yeah.
Okay, I want to touch on one of the pillars, one of the dimensions, which is mental health. How do issues such as mental health and stress and burnout affect the productivity in the workplace?
Extremely, extremely. I've done research already. The last few papers I published a few years ago actually demonstrated that there's a link, well, correlational link between stress, the amount of stress that you feel as a worker, and your depression, performance, which include productivity. There's that kind of positive relationship, positive in the sense that as stress increases, your burnout levels also increase. And that's dangerous. So it tells us that mental health is something that we really need to tackle, especially in public and private sector organizations. And we have to open it a bit more, because I think mental health is still contraband discussion or taboo. And I find it more, I guess, prevalent in the younger generations, but I find older people are still reserved when it comes to talk about mental health. So I guess that's where the educational arm of the policy work comes in.
Okay. Ms. Prescod, how does the ministry monitor the standards that the workplace policy would have outlined to ensure that workplaces are keeping up to code with what you would expect or what you would like?
Well, in terms of the dimensions, I wouldn't say per se that we monitor the dimensions. I know if it's anything to do with safety and health in the workplace, anything that will fall under the Shaw Act, but those are the things that the ministry are responsible for making sure that workplaces adhere to. But we have gone out in terms of promotion. We had some bus tours, and we've been to the Warrens area. That one was in 2024 before he joined the ministry. They went to the Warrens area, both of the private and public, and They started first of all in Bridgetown. They went to the businesses in Bridgetown. And March this year, we went to we went to Sheraton Mall. We also went to Newton's. We went over to Popular, over to Coiman. We went to Newton Business Park. Previously, they had been to 6 Rose. And on a monthly basis, we have webinars. And the webinars are, each month, we cover a different dimension. And the webinars are open to both government and private. We just put out the link and it's open to as many persons. Also, we had an individual one for the Ministry of Education. And it had over 1,000 teachers and workers for the Ministry of Education. So the webinars are very popular. Persons come on and they give suggestions of what else we could do, but we're trying to do more outreach, more promotion. And of course, we are having a trainer of trainers. So
yes.
Professor Devonish is all into that. So he's the person who's developing the trainer of trainers. So we're going to train some persons, both in the public and the private. So I guess Professor Devonish can give you some more information on that.
Yeah, thank you, P.S. Prescod. So the training of trainers is an initiative to build capacity of trainers beyond what we provide from the committee to spread the gospel, so to speak, of workplace wellness, and to also educate and build and implement workplace wellness initiatives in their own spaces. So imagine training HR managers, people who sit on health and wellness committees, those who have a particular appetite for wellness. Being part of this training program would give them the necessary and requisite skills to build and implement and monitor wellness programs. Now, what I should admit is that I think one of the things that we want to really improve on over the next cycle of the implementation is the monitoring and evaluation component, because there's a distinction. As P.S. Prescod noted, there's the SHAW Act. The SHAW Act is the regulatory or the legal instrument governing health and safety. The National Workplace Wellness Policy is not a legislative device, so it cannot make any mandates. So all we're using the policy for is exactly to encourage, to educate. So it's more a developmental tool. One of the things that we would want, P.S. Prescod, I'm not preempting you here, but to have health and safety officers also not considering it as a requirement, but that, being part of that educational machinery in the workplaces as they go about and they interact with workers and employers, that they can share, they can spread the gospel in the same way.
Do you think it's harder getting people to basically buy into this, since it is not a mandate, a rule, is more of a suggestion?
Well, I won't put it as a suggestion, but you can say your point.
I wouldn't say so, because I think right now a lot of persons are into health. So I think
but this is so much more than health. This is a lot of other spiritual. I was even thinking about spiritual wellness when I was thinking about work, but that stood out to me. Cultural, those were definitely important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when we started this whole process in 2016, one of the things that we decided against is to make this into another legislative burden on employers. And it's important because there are distinct functions of policy, and that is to develop, to educate, to help employers and employees be more self-sufficient in what they do. You would always have the SHAW Act that would still govern and police, but I think having a new piece of legislation, to me, would go with high rejection, and and people would say that it's going to be legally burdensome. So we wanted something that was more positive and forward thinking. So that's where the policy conversation came in 2016. But I would dare say that encouraging employers still require incentives and rewards. One of the things that we're looking at over the next cycle is to develop a national awards program for employers, where employees can nominate employers who they consider to be like the best in wellness. So you can, and then we have hopefully a national ceremony and those types of things. But again, that's still in the works.
Okay.
Yeah.
P.S. Prescod, what are some of the things employers can do immediately to ensure that their workplaces and their employers are well?
Well, I usually complain a lot because when you go to even public government places, I could see that they're not really, some of them don't even know about the policy. Yep. And it's out there, it's online, and I have Facebook, it's there. So when I go out, I'm always encouraging them to do things because they're simple things that you can do. Give water breaks. When we have meetings at work and there's an hour, we tell the minister we have to stand up and stretch. So there are small things that you can implement to make sure that persons are healthy, but it's just to want to do them. You need a champion, a few champions then in the workplace to really push it and not be afraid to push it.
Okay, but there's also a role for the actual employee to play as well in this aspect. So let's speak about that some more.
But that's what I mean. We need champions. The champions not as the employers, but employees that see it as important and to push it and not to be afraid to say, well, these are some things that we should do. And in doing it will make us more productive, more healthy, want to work, less sick days, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of our audience, where can they access these webinars and sessions where they can learn more about the policy?
Well,
we're going to drop it in the chat later, but you know, just to clarify.
Right. So the webinars, whenever there's a webinar, it will usually be on the labor's website, www.labor.gov.bb website, as well as there is the Workplace Wellness website.
Yes, so workplacewellness.bb. So everyone who's online, who's watching, go on to workplacewellness.bb. You can access all of the information about the Workplace Wellness Policy. You can download the entire Workplace Wellness Policy. You can download the guide, download the resources, download the checklist. All that information is free to access. And we also have a Facebook page, Workplace Wellness. And Instagram, which is Workplace Wellness BB as well.
Okay, can we dive into some more of the dimensions that we were going to mention? As I'm particularly interested in the cultural and the spiritual wellness.
Okay.
Can we speak more about that, about the importance or the significance of those particular aspects in the National Workplace Wellness Policy?
Okay, so let's talk about the spiritual wellness. Now, spiritual wellness is one of those dimensions that can be a bit controversial because people confuse it or conflate it with religiosity. Yeah, that you have to go to church and it abides to some Christian principle, and that's not necessarily the case. Spirituality is that internal set of beliefs that drive you as an individual. That, you know, people say there's something bigger than myself. And if you think about the workplace is just one of those spaces that you should be able to enact those beliefs, not infringing on anyone else, but promoting greater harmony and cooperation among your team members in the workplace. So one indicator, for example, when it comes to spiritual wellness in the workplace is the extent to which an employer recognizes these particular practices.
All faiths.
Yeah.
All faiths, because the faith-based organizations fall under the Ministry of Labor as well, and we recognize all faiths.
Correct.
So not just Christian faith, but all faiths.
Yeah, and that they're not discriminated against because of their spiritual beliefs. So, insofar as they do not, again, infringe on somebody else's in the workplace. The cultural wellness, which is a favorite of mine as well, this dimension speaks to diversity. You know, we talk a lot about equity and diversity and inclusion, persons with disabilities, persons of different thoughts and different interests. You know, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about the fact years ago, you know, we used to use the pejorative foreigners, all these foreigners to come and taking up our jobs, and you know, but we're recognizing because of the open, we have now the CARICOM arrangements with some of our CARICOM nations, and they're moving freely. It's opening up the doors to interact with people who we may consider not like us from a national standpoint or cultural standpoint, but recognizing that we still have to work together. We are human first. And the cultural dimension is recognizing that component. The other aspect of the cultural wellness dimension is also recognizing that there are certain cultural practices that may affect our wellness positively or negatively. Like, you know, we would make the joke about, as you know, growing up with your grandmother, you have a full plate of food, you have to eat all of that. That has been a cultural practice, you know, or you like to have a bigger size, you know, man or bigger size woman. These particular beliefs have been circulating for a long time. So cultural wellness is having that self-reflection that there are certain cultural practices that we have to consider in terms of their positive or negative effects on our wellness.
Okay, thank you for that. And if you're interested in learning about the other dimensions of the National Workplace Wellness Policy, you can visit the website. We're going to drop that information in the comment section so you can follow up on that. But for now, we're going to take a pause for a short break. But when we return, we'll continue the discussion. So stay with us and keep your questions and comments coming in.
Hi everybody, this is Michael. I am the director of In Focus. I tend to handle all of the little things that happen behind the scenes, getting the graphics together, coordinating the team, and of course, getting this feed out to you guys to watch on the internet.
I guess that comes probably, again, different with society, not understanding.
6, 5.
We're back here.
We are coming up on Petite Minus Prize. Everybody have a good show. I think we got a big audience today.
The line, stay inside, and pay the easy way online with the Pace Digital mobile app. Now you can pay for your renewed license, police certificate of character, and more via the Easy Pay Plus platform with the Pace Digital mobile app. Log into Easy Pay Plus, select the service, and confirm. Select the Pace Digital mobile app payment icon for your QR code. Open your Pace Digital mobile app and select the Pace Digital Pay tab. Scan the QR code and confirm your payment. Visit us online to learn more. Don't have the Pace Digital mobile app? Download it today.
Welcome to Just a Conversation, the podcast where we discuss the topics that matter to you.
From real stories to real talk, we dive into everything. No filters, no fluff.
We're talking about the issues you actually care about. Finance, mental health, sports, entertainment, and so much more.
It's not just talk. It's conversations that bring us together, challenge us, and keep it real.
Don't have time to watch? No problem.
Just turn on the video while you're cooking and we'll keep you company.
Listen on your morning commute, while you work out at the gym, or even when you get home on evenings and chilling out.
Wherever you are, however you listen, this is your space for real conversations.
Join us.
Join us.
Just a conversation.
Available on all streaming platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at gisbarbados to share your thoughts or to stay connected.
Yearly, the Caribbean faces the threat of storms, killer hurricanes, and other natural disasters. With the impact of climate change, the trend is predicted to increase. What would you do if Barbados were impacted by a hurricane? How would you survive?
Welcome back to In Focus. For those of you now joining us, tonight's discussion is centered on workplace wellness and what healthy workplaces can look like for employees, employers, and the wider economy. We've already had some insightful contributions from our panelists, and we're also receiving several questions and comments from viewers online. So let's continue the conversation. Our first question here for the night is coming from Suzette Thomp. How can workers maintain boundaries between work and personal life in a digital age? Which one is going to handle this?
I'll take that question. And that is a typical question. I mean, when we had the COVID-19 pandemic, if you all remember, we had teachers who had to go online, and they were responsible for maintaining tuition. But at the same time, the complaint was that they had to navigate all of the technological demands of an online classroom. And there was that, I said the boundary line at that time, I remember I was giving a presentation, but the boundary line between home and work disappeared. So you had teachers and other types of workers who were working remotely or online. They were at home and it was interfering with their home life, and home life was interfering with their work life. When it comes to boundary setting, however, I think it has to be a negotiation between the worker and the employer. I think employers oftentimes, I think they cross over boundaries, and the problem is that often that workers are left to remind employers. But then because of that power imbalance, workers find themselves quite, not forthcoming with it to argue with or to set a boundary with an employer, because they would say, but Devonish, well, if I set a boundary, that could put me at risk in terms of my performance review and so on. So one of the things that we encourage, and this is from the National Workplace Wellness, is that employers take responsibility when it comes to those boundaries, because we can't just ask the worker to set boundaries and not understand or appreciate the power imbalance between employers and workers. Employers too have to be part of that conversation. So I would be in a session talking to workers, and they would say, well, you appreciated the converting. We need more employers in our workshop. So what we're trying to do now in our training is encourage employers to sit in the training, to sit in the sessions, so they understand the importance of boundary setting, and that is a kind of a shared arrangement between the worker and the employer. We recognize that there are things that will go outside of boundaries, or that would break those boundaries as employers, but I don't think we should hold it as a norm. I think that should be an exception. Because it's important, that balance between work life and home life.
I understand, because during COVID, obviously, you're working from home, you're working remotely. I think the misconception is that, you're
always at work.
Yeah, you're always at work. So 4:30 comes, and usually you're in the office and you leave, but no, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you're still getting work coming in or calls coming in. But isn't there a role there for the Ministry of Labor's guidelines or something that they can insist that employers understand and respect the 8:30 to 4:30 still after hours is overtime?
I don't know if there is a rule, but I believe in work-life balance. There must be balance. I think that employers were, I don't know, when it came to COVID, there were no boundaries. As you said, you would get up very, very early. As soon as you got up, you went on your computer. And sometimes there were meetings that went all up to like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So there were no boundaries. And since COVID, I think some employers still think that they can call you at any time. And I can remember saying to someone that I have work-life balance. So I shut off at a certain time. and someone mentioned that But if you want to get to a certain level in the public service, you shouldn't think about work-life balance. But you have to say they don't mean fair right at this point in time. That they don't mean. I believe there should be balance. Anything that goes too far out of whack, it affects you anyhow, and you probably will then shut off. There needs to be, not that if you have to do something extra, of course you'll do it, but you still have to have a cutoff time because you need family time, you need work time, and you need relaxation time as well.
True.
That's very important.
That makes a better worker anyhow.
Yeah. So I would encourage the commentator to have a conversation with her supervisor and to see, to kind of reorient those boundaries in the arrangement or the relationship.
Okay, thank you for that. Our next question is coming in from H. Peters. Long hours and unpaid overtime are common complaints. Where does worker wellness fit into that conversation? P.S. Prescod.
Unpaid overtime?
Well, yeah, that's not illegal, right?
That's illegal. They need to report it to the Labor Department. No, as long as you work over the 40 hours, you go over overtime, you should be paid. I know there are some levels that you are at. I know in the government service that they say you're not entitled really to overtime. But I know, for instance, when I was in the Ministry of Finance, you could get what you call an honorarium. But I'm not too sure if this person is from the private sector. But I know for most organizations, when you go over and you work overtime, you're expected to be paid. And if you're not paid, that's illegal.
So then he has all rights to contact the Ministry of Labor for further information
Further
and
information
assistance.
on that.
Thank you.
We don't know all the details.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. This is from T.T. Thomas. How can workers focus on wellness when many are worried about job security and rising living costs?
Well, interestingly, those things are not mutually exclusive because worrying about job insecurity and rising costs of living all go hand in hand into your wellness. Because if you think about it, if I'm stressed at work, and then I have this additional stress burden of trying to meet my bills, commitments, and pay my utilities, dealing with so many other things, that will have a toll on my mental and physical health and other dimensions of my wellness. So I think it's important. I think it's more important when you do have those kinds of events in your life that you seek support and you seek help and you really prioritize your wellness. Because if you think about it, wellness is the only real estate that we have as human beings. If you have no health and wellness, you have nothing. And I think we have to kind of bring back that prioritization of wellness in the conversation.
Because as you would have highlighted, wellness is, with hand in hand with productivity.
Exactly.
You can be productive and get the job done if you're not well. Yeah.
And I always make the point, a healthy workforce is a healthy bottom line. If employers want to see that increase in the bottom line, in profits and so on, it is reflected in your workers. Human resources, human capital, they are the greatest resource asset that you have. All right? All these systems, all the AI technologies, all of those things are not without people. And the greatest, I'd say, engine for people is the wellness engine. Yeah.
But as you mentioned AI, is it possible that workers can probably be a little scared or skeptical now to, speak out or stand up for their rights, what are basically their rights, because of the fear that they could be replaced now in this day and age with, technology?
Yeah, AI has brought a significant benefit and I think a significant threat to the human condition. And I would say that, and this is what I tell my students, if you consider what has happened over the decades, like when, for example, computers came in and replaced typewriters, it was a lot of resistance. People were scared because this new technology was coming to take up their jobs. But guess what happened? The government and the private sector had to start orienting workers to using the computer, making them feel more comfortable, building their skill sets. So if I look at the AI technology as just a new phase or new moment in this life, and I'm saying that if we want to get ahead of the AI and see it only as a threat, or see it less as a threat rather, we have to then develop these skills. The same way that we did when computers were coming in and replacing typewriters. So I would encourage workers, I would encourage independent contractors, self-employed people to learn a little bit more about AI, get into the training workshops, build capacity and skill sets in AI, so that when that time comes, but it will come, that AI would be perhaps mirroring a lot of what we do as human beings in the workplace. We are still ahead of the curve because those AI technologies still require human intervention, and the employers will be looking for human beings who can navigate with these AI technologies to leverage the benefits.
And also, I would say reskilling, because there are things that, new skills, got to develop new skills. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We have another question. This is from Danielle H. Is there evidence that workplace wellness programs actually improve productivity and staff retention? Yes, Prescod, do you want to start this one?
I would say, I don't know if you say there's evidence, but as I said before, the evidence is in your productivity. Because if you're not well, there's less that you can do. So the evidence is in the output. The more well someone is, the more they can work, the more they can produce. So I think that alone is the evidence that you need.
And added to that, there is a tremendous body of scientific evidence out there globally that shows there's that connection between healthier, more well workplaces and more productive results in all sectors. That's a clear connection there. That's proven. And I've done work in the Caribbean that also adds to that evidence base.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from S. Waite. What are the biggest causes of stress for workers in Barbados today? Can we start with UPS, Prescod?
The biggest causes of stress in the workplace?
Yes.
Well, I have to speak from experience. I guess what would really stress out persons in the workplace is when there's tension between most likely the supervisor and the person that's being supervised, or you might think your workload, somebody's workload is too much for you, and you don't think that you have a voice, you have to do everything at once, you don't prioritize. That can be it sometimes.
Well, what recourse then does the person, an employee, have in this instance where they think they can't speak to their supervisor or even maybe the head of the organization? Where else can they go to feel, okay, I finally found somebody that's hearing me and understanding me and guiding me?
Well, I guess you have to speak to someone else, your counterpart. And as Professor Devonish said, if there were committees, someone else that you can speak, you have to have persons. I know sometimes you have coaches, you have mentors, you have to have some coach that you can speak to, someone that you look up to other than that person. And if you want to, you can't go to the person on your own, you probably have someone to go along with you. Because sometimes there may be tension if there's a one-on-one. Because I know, for instance, some person might not feel comfortable going into a meeting alone with their supervisor. But then you can have the union rep, shop steward, someone that you're comfortable having that first dialogue with that can go along with you.
Yeah. And to interject, I know that under regulations, organizations of certain size thresholds need to have a health and safety committee. And I think that is also a valuable access resource for those employees. We know in the public sector too that there are employee assistance programs that employees are able to access to help them deal with a lot of these psychological pressures. But like PS, I think psychological stress, workplace bullying, and that inability to balance work and home, I think those are the top three determinants of ill health. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We have another question. This one is from Claire Best, 3536. Any hope of regulations to protect employees from violation of their personal time, especially those hounded by cell phone calls and messages? This is similar to what we were talking about just now about boundaries.
You have to set your own boundaries.
Yeah.
Because they probably will still call, but you have to have a shut-off time. But if some person, as long as there's a message, they're going to respond. But when they shut off time, you probably answer the messages the next day. But I guess you yourself have to set boundaries. If you think that as long as there's a call, you have to answer it. As long as there's an email, you have to respond. You would never start responding. So you yourself have to set some boundaries.
Yeah.
Don't think that someone's going to set them for you.
Yeah, and we do recognize that there's no legislative coverage when it comes to that kind of issue. But I would dare say that there are types of sectors and organizations where those out of hours reach out from management is very commonplace. Like you would have a situation where they give you a company phone and they would tell you in your contract we'll be calling you up to 9, 10 o'clock. That's part of it, and you sign on to that contract. So I think these are things that would have to be approached from a very sensitive standpoint, especially. And I always tell people, read your contracts. Make sure you have those conversations about what is acceptable or what's unacceptable. I know oftentimes when we are faced with a new job opportunity, we tend to be very reserved because we don't want to offend anyone, and we want the job. But when you get into the job, we have these difficult demands that we now have to confront. So I think having that honest conversation at the job interview stage, and even after, if it's a case where things change and you go back to your employer and say, you're dealing with these issues, and if your employer is an empathetic one, I think you should be able to have some adjustments your way.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we have another question. This one is from Karen Thompson, 6302. If I'm interested in being a trainer, what's required? I think this is related to the webinar you would have mentioned earlier.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I would tell that individual to reach out to us. You can reach out to dwayne.devonish@ue.edu, or you can reach out to the PS. I know.
Prescod@labor.gov.bb.
Correct. And you can let us know, and we would meet with you and have a conversation. Because one of the things that I'm happy that we are embarking upon this year is the development of a database or directory of health and wellness, specialists in different areas that we can share with employers to say, if you have these particular needs, these are people that you can actually gravitate to.
That's good. Okay. Our next question is from Happy Rex. Can you give some examples of workplaces that have good wellness programs? Thanks for that question.
We have a yearly workplace in wellness action forum, and this is a forum that started as a flagship event, a full day workshop where we invite different wellness practitioners and other people to make presentations about best practices. And I think in our last one, this runs every October, every year, we had a HR manager from Wabisco actually discussing some important wellness initiatives that they have embarked upon and the benefits, the fruits that they've been able to harvest in those wellness programs. So Wabisco has been a very popular, a very effective organization when it comes to wellness planning. I know Sagicor has a very active wellness programming agenda out there, and they've been doing quite well. So at least those two organizations we are aware of. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from R. Jones. There are some countries that are looking at a 4-day work week. Is that a possibility in Barbados? P.S. Prescod.
Well, what I can say is, I don't know if it is. I wouldn't say that it's not a possibility. I can remember the Prime Minister had said one time, any 4, any 40. So they were looking at, you can have the 8x5, you can have 4 days at 10 hours. They're thinking about 40, but not necessarily how it is structured right now. But I don't know. I don't think that we've gone all the way with that, but that was a suggestion. I think we can bring it back up on the table.
Yeah. I would like to see something like that.
Yeah.
I'm familiar that several European countries have actually piloted this the 4-day work week, and with tremendous benefits they've observed. And there are different models to the as P.S. Prescod noted, the 4-day work week, where you may have each day 10 hours, you get back the 40 hours. Yeah. But to be quite frank, there is a model that suggests, and this might create some havoc, that you can have the same 8 hour at 4 and work for 32 hours. Who's to say that a 40-hour work week is the best work week? That was something that was created or that was inspired by Henry Ford in the U.S. That 40-hour, that 8-hour traditional work week. And who's to say that we can't do something different, And
also, I would add the flexible work arrangements. That is still on the table, because I think it worked well in COVID. Of course, we had the disadvantages of not having a balance, but it worked well. I love working at home 2 days a week, coming in the office only 3 days a week. But I think that there are still some employers who don't think you do any work when you're at home.
Yes.
So you have to get a whole mind set change, a shift in thinking.
Yeah,
but flexible work is
good.
good.
In place, I mean, it's kind of hard to work from home without meeting your deadlines or your targets.
You can meet the deadlines same way.
I agree.
Same way. I think sometimes, well, when I used to work at home, I used to work harder. Because I used to get real early and end real late. So I think I used to put in more.
Yeah.
What about the mental health days that we would have heard about before? Is that still, or did that ever come to fruition?
No, actually, that was something that was touted some years ago, that we have these mental health days, and they should not be confused with your typical sick days. That is something that we would, perhaps we could bring it back on the table for the committee to consider. It might not be a legislative kind of intervention, but it could be something where we could encourage employers to, have a mental health day, because there's nothing stopping an individual employer right now in their particular contractual arrangement with their workers to implement a mental health day. You don't need to have a national law to do so. But I understand the value or the leverage of a law that can put that in. But I can see where some resistance can come in. But I think if we can encourage employers to do it, or by sector, that it can go a long way.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. This is from Melly F3. What happens when you set boundaries and find yourself in hot water? Authorities need to put measures in place to actually protect people.
Yes, and it's unfortunate because the Shaw Act again doesn't have the enough coverage for those types of events. I know in the UK, for example, and parts of Europe, stress is actually deemed a psychosocial hazard. Like if you look at the current Shaw Act, it treats many physical hazards, or it treats the many physical hazards, but it does not take into account those psychosocial hazards. That psychosocial would include things like, the bullying, the inability to balance work and life and those types of things. That's legislated, so that if there's in any event an investigation and organizations are found to wanting in that area, they can be, it's litigious. They can be, they're liable. So we are still lagging behind a lot of our European counterparts. But I would like to see a day where we can have those on the books, to protect workers from those types of events. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question. This is from @Bimness. How do we ensure wellness programs are meaningful and not just box-ticking exercises? Yes. Prescod, would you like to answer that one?
How do we make sure that they're meaningful, not box sticking? But I don't know if the person is referring to the checklist, because it's just a list that encourages you of things that you can implement.
I believe they're talking about the actual policy, so making sure that we are actually living the policy and not just trying to just check off what he said.
Yeah.
Well, I still think that it comes down to individuals. And wanting to be healthy in all areas. So nobody don't have to tell you this is something that you have to do. You must want to do it for yourself. So I think it's still the onus is on the individual person to be healthy in all aspects. Don't wait for somebody to tell you you're going to be healthy or based on a workplace policy that says these are the various things, but it's good for you.
Yeah. And I would add that I think for any employer, for any employee, as much as they can, to impress upon their alternative counterpart, employer to employee, the value, the importance of workplace wellness, not just to design, not just to implement, but also to monitor these effects. As again, the remit of our subcommittee is to promote awareness and to do a bit of hand-holding with employers, and we're encouraging those to reach out to us. You can message us on the Workplace Wellness BB. I believe that we have a contact form on our website. If you go to workplacewellness.bb, and you could be a worker, you could be an employer, say I want some help in this area, and we will look at that information and we will reach out to you. So that's the best. So we are there as your support base, because we know that a policy like this is going to take a lot of heavy lifting, and we can do some of that heavy lifting, or at least ease that pressure from you.
Okay, so we're getting ready to wrap up. Would you like to share your final comments or your advice to employers and employees with the implementation of the National Workplace Wellness Policy?
So my advice to all employers and employees is to get to know the workplace wellness policy, what it's all about, the various dimensions. You can go on the website, read it up for yourself. It is easy reading. I know you said you went through it. It's easy reading, user-friendly, simple, lots of pictures in there, infographics. So it is easy for anyone to read from primary. Can read it. It's nothing difficult. Very, very easy to read. Okay. Yeah.
And my close-off submission is, and I forgot to mention this in the earlier part of our conversation, there's a part of the policy that speaks to how you can implement it. I coined it years ago, called the 4E framework. So the first E is to educate. That could be educating yourself, educating your employers. It could also be an E for employers to consider that the first point of implementation of any policy is education, educating your workers. Because it softens the resistance and it allows for some level of acceptance. But the first E is insufficient, it's necessary. The second E is enabling, because we can educate people, but until we enable, that is, we provide the necessary resources and support, that education in the first E will not translate to action. So that enabling is also important. That's what we do in this committee to support people. But we are asking employers in the implementation, when you are educating, you also have to set the environment, create the enablers to allow for that translation of knowledge to action. The third E, you have to engage. That is, involve your workers. Not at the very end, because we like to sometimes create things and foist them, foist them on the workers. Involve the workers at the very design stage of the workplace wellness initiative. Set up committees where they can help plan and implement and monitor. When workers are involved, you're more likely to get a buy-in. And the last E is the encouragement E. We call it encourage. So this is where you have to put in incentives to incentivize workers and employers to buy in to the particular workplace wellness and to keep them on that wellness journey, right? So whether it be change your PDRS, PRDS, or your performance appraisal in the private sector to add in a component for wellness, do that. Do as much as you can to get those behaviors as commonplace as possible.
Okay, thank you. And just drop the information, the Facebook, social media handles, and the website again. We're going to put it in the comment box, but...
Right. So on our Facebook, just search for National Workplace Wellness Policy of Barbados. For Instagram, it's workplacewellness.bb. Please follow us. We're going to get some influencers helping us. And of course, our website is workplace.bb. Okay. Workplacewellness.bb.
And this is for employers, employees, anybody.
Everything, and all the
public
results
sector,
are free.
private sector, everybody is invited to view it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, tonight's discussion highlighted the importance of workplace wellness, not simply as a human resource initiative, but as a critical component of healthier organizations, stronger productivity, and national development. I'd like to thank our panelists for sharing their expertise and perspectives on this topic. And of course, thank you to our viewers for your participation and engagement throughout tonight's program. If you missed any part of the discussion, you can watch the full program again on the BGIS Facebook page and YouTube channel, and follow BGIS Conversations on Instagram for highlights. Join us next time for another informative and engaging discussion. I'm Sharifa Medford-Gilkes, and this is In Focus.